If the Bible is true, then Trump and all of his followers are going to hell according to the Bible. And I can prove this with just 3 Bible verses. The first verse is Leviticus 19:33 and 34. It says, "When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God." So this first passage is what the Bible teaches about how you should treat people who were not born in the country that you live in. So this is from the Old Testament. This is Moses speaking in context of giving the law. People will often say that Jesus taught things that are different from the Old Testament, contradict the Old Testament, and therefore we should follow what Jesus said rather than what Moses said. But in this case, there's no contradiction between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Jesus speaks about how you treat the poor, the strangers, the least of these. There's nothing he said which actually contradicts this. So when Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? He said, love God, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. That command to love your neighbor as yourself is actually from this passage. And not only is there no qualification, it doesn't say love your neighbor as long as they were either born in your country or as long as they paid Trump $1 million for a gold Visa card. It just says love your neighbor, love other people is what it says. Now, the third passage is in the New Testament, in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 27. It says, if anyone deliberately continues to sin after coming to a knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left, only a fearful expectation of the judgment and the raging fire which will consume the enemies of God. Now, of course, Christians will typically say and try to evade this, escape this, and say, well, but we're believers, and the Bible promises that people who are believers will be going to heaven. But this passage clearly teaches that if you deliberately continue to disobey the Bible's teachings, deliberately continue to sin after coming to that knowledge of the truth, you're not a believer, you're a self-deceived hypocrite. That's what the Bible says, and that's how we can know whether or not someone is actually a believer according to the Bible. Just let them know that Jesus criticized a lot of religious people for being hypocrites, and they just happen to be one more hypocrite to add to the mix. They will say, well, but the people we're talking about are people who haven't come here legally. Well, that isn't a biblical idea. That's adding something onto the Bible which contradicts what the Bible teaches. And the question is if they follow the Bible, or if they follow Trump, or if they follow the Republican Party. If they follow the Bible, then they should want to treat the foreigners just like native born. It's just someone who was born in another country and is now living in your country. So they can follow Trump's teaching or the Republican Party teaching instead of the Bible, but that is rejecting what the Bible teaches and is putting them as a sinner in the hands of an angry God. So in the New Testament, some people came up to Jesus and they said, well, why don't your disciples wash their hands like the tradition of the elders? And Jesus said, well, why don't you follow the commands of God instead of your traditions? They had a tradition called Korban. Jesus pointed out that because of that human tradition, they were ignoring what the Bible actually taught for the sake of that human tradition, and he criticized them for it. And Christians do that all the time. They take human traditions, and because of those human traditions, they ignore what the Bible actually teaches. Now, if they say that the Bible shouldn't affect government policy, then they just need to be consistent with that. I would actually agree with that we shouldn't try to take the Mosaic Law and drop it on the country any more than you would try to drop Sharia law on the country. We evaluate these things in actuality differently is what we should be doing, but just that they should be consistent about that. Because if they accept that, they should ignore this teaching because they believe that you shouldn't use the Bible to enforce government policies. Well, then just do that with regards to marriage. Do that with regards to what they think the biblical teaching is regarding abortion. Do that with regards to their perspectives on who gets married to whom and so on. Just let that be completely separate. I consider it very ironic that a lot of liberals, atheists, agnostics, witches, even Satanists treat foreigners, people from other countries, with dignity and with respect, while Christians will refuse to do that, treat them with hostility, treat them poorly, despite this threat of hell hanging over their head. They should be even more committed to that in their personal lives and in regards to what they would support for public policy, because the Bible condemns them for not doing that. And they should recognize that they should condemn the Republican Party, that they should condemn Trump for being morally evil in this regard. Of course, we are discussing this from different angles and different perspectives. People have said that if you need the threat of hell to be a good person, then you are not a good person. I would say that this whole issue shows an actual step beyond that, because in this case, you have people who believe in that, or at least profess to believe in the Bible, which has that threat of hell. And that threat of hell, even though they claim to believe it, is not enough for them to make them into a good person. They're just a self-centered person that does whatever they think will serve their own personal interest as much as possible. And as a result of that, they're highly susceptible to being deceived and to be gullible by con men who promise them the world, and they follow them hoping that this person will honestly serve them and be a benefit to them.